If you're looking to find out more about disc golf terminology, you're in the right place. I'm very excited about this video. I've been talking to a load of new players online, and it has been so much fun. I love seeing new players experiencing disc golf for the first time. And with that, there's so many questions and desires to elevate your game as fast as possible. I remember when I first started, I wanted to learn about form, I wanted to learn about what discs to throw. I had so many questions that I wanted answered so I could get very good as fast as possible. But there were some hurdles that came with that. Disc golf has got its own kind of terminology. So like, whoever heard of what an anhyzer was before disc golf? Like, is that even a word? I don't know. But anyway, it was really difficult to understand all the terms. There was a definite learning curve that came with that. So I'm gonna be here today to just rapid fire loads of terms that might help you understand those form videos, technique videos, and new disc reviews that you'll be watching in the future. Let's go. So let's start with the discs themselves. Discs can have different types of flight plates, section that goes right across the top. You can have a puddle top. It's kind of got kind of a concave look to them. If you poured water on them, it'd make a puddle. You've got a flat top, which will be flat, just very, very straight right across the top. Then you'll have kind of like the regular stock stuff where it has just like a little bit of a rise in it, slightly circular. And then you'll have what's called a domey disc, which is abnormally tall on the flight plate. They typically come with a heartbeat, is when you push them in and it'll be like, what up, what up, what up. That'll be a bit of a heartbeat for it, typically a bit more overstable for those. That'll cover the flight plate. Now on the underside, we'll talk rims. Your rim will vary in width. So typically your faster drivers are gonna have a wider rim to them, whereas your fairways down to your mids and your putters, the rim will consistently shrink. It's typically more comfortable for thinner rims where no matter what size of hand that you have, you'll be able to grasp it easily. So let's talk about speed now, shall we? So the speed deals with the angle of the disc and the arm speed required for the disc to fly its intended flight path. So a disc that is 13 speed is going to require a much faster arm to throw its intended flight path than one that is a 4 or a 5. So your mid-ranges, especially for beginners, will definitely be the place to start for your slower arm speed. So let's move from speed into flight numbers. Flight numbers characterize a disc's flight. So the first one is speed. Like we talked about before, speed is the arm speed required to ensure that the disc flies its intended flight path. So everything starts with speed. The next one is glide. Glide shows how much air is going to be able to be under the disc, and it will just continue to float, glide further and further. The third number would be the turn. So this deals with the disc stability in its mid-flight. Will it turn to the right, turn to the left? Negative numbers, it means it's more understable. Positive numbers mean it's more overstable. We'll get to those terms later. The last one is its fade. So at the end of its flight, when the disc begins to slow down, it'll be how much the disc will consistently come back to the left or the right. The positive numbers, overstable. The negative numbers, understable. For beginners, negative numbers are your friend, for sure. Moving on. So talking about discs' turns and their fade leads right into disc stability. So discs can be overstable, neutral stable, and understable. So for an overstable disc, for a right hand backhand, it will try to get left very quickly. It won't fly for a very long way. It'll get up and get over. These discs are great for the wind if you're trying to skip them off the ground. They're really good for being very dependable. You know what they're going to do consistently. Now, stable discs are discs that are going to fly really, really straight. They won't have a whole lot of fade, a turn or fade. They're going to stay really, really consistent. So for those discs, you're looking at like a -1-1, which means it's going to just barely move to the side, one side, and then barely come back to the other side. So they'll stay really, really straight. Understable discs will be the negative flight numbers, And those are going to be, for a right-hand backhand player, they're going to be the discs that will have the tendency to go out to the right. Now you can get a lot of distance out of understable discs, but they're not as reliable in the wind. So there's a give and take there, right? So let's start with a couple of examples about stability, okay? So I've got an overstable disc here. So this will get up and get to the left very, very quickly. Check it out. So it's up, moving, 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 and then dumping out to the left, okay? Let's go with a neutral disc now. This is an undertaker. Should fly very, very straight. So you see how that's going super straight, and then it's got just a little bit of fade right at the end. Very neutral flying disc, the Undertaker. Next up, we've got the Avenger SS. Typically, this is more of an understable disc, so when I let this go flat, it'll start rolling out to the right. Check it out. See that? So gets up, moves to the right, and doesn't have a whole lot of fade at the end. That is overstable, stable, and understable. Let's go on to the next set. So now we've worked over disc stability, let's talk about release angles at this point. So you've got hyzer release angle, a flat release angle, and an anhyzer release angle. So flat, disc will be nice and flat. The hyzer angle, the disc will be pointed down in relation to you, away from your body. It'll be pointed down, so it'll get up in the air and run to the left if you're a right-handed, backhanded player. Anhyzer, the disc will be angled up upon release, and it will try to run out to the right for a right-handed, backhanded player. If you're left-handed, flip all these around. So let's show you a couple of examples of these, okay? We'll start with an anhyzer, okay? So I'll put this up in the air. Typically anhyzers need more air under them. You gotta throw them higher to allow them to do their work, okay? So hopefully you'll be able to see this flight. Here we go. So you see how that got to move over to the right just a little bit more? Typically, if you throw understable discs on an anhyzer, they'll really get to ride that out. Now for a flat release. All right, so you see how that's maintained a straight line the whole way? So if you throw a flat release with a neutral stable disc, it's gonna just continue going straight, straight, straight. Now, let's talk a hyzer release. We'll throw a drone for this. Hyzer, outside point of your disc will be pointed down. We'll throw that out and it'll get to the left very, very quickly. Check it out. All right, so we got that out on that hyzer angle. It's not gonna try to flip up or move away. It's gonna go straight down because the disc is already wanting to go left. So you'll put a lot of those angles out there and it'll spike down to the ground, which is where spike hyzer comes from. So you put it up in the air and it'll crash down. If you do it with a driver, they'll tend to stick. And then if you do it with a mid-range or a putter, they'll kind of splash down and come and settle in. So let's go over a couple of spicier lines, shall we? So we can do what's called a flex line, which is when you throw an overstable disc on an anhyzer line and it will fight out of it to get back left, because an overstable disc is gonna want to go left if you're throwing it with a right-hand backhand. So if you throw it on an ante, it's really gonna wanna fight and get back. So it will get up, move to the right a little bit, flex, and then go back down to the left. Check it out. Goes up, turn, Now it's fading, flexing, and down. Cool, huh? So if you're wanting to get around trees, but still get back to the left, an anti-flex is the shot for you. Okay, let's talk about a hyzer flip. So a hyzer flip is when you take an understable disc and you release it on a hyzer angle. But instead of running to the right, it will flip up to flat and then continue going straight. So great for tunnel shots and places where you have minimal left to right to work with. Check it out. So that's a perfect example of a shot getting turned over. So sometimes you overturn your disc and it will not fly straight, it just turns over and kind of burns into the ground. If you do it too much and the disc starts rolling, that's called a thrower, and your friends will make fun of you for it. Let's try a hyzer flip again. There we go. So you see how that started out hyzered, but worked its way up to flat and just continued flying. That's what you're looking for in a hyzer flip. Some more spicy lines that we can talk about. Some discs will describe their flight as having an S-curve. So that's when the disc will roll out to the right for a right hand backhand and then kind of come back into the left, kind of middle of where you were throwing it. So it's not going to go too far left and it's not going to go too far right. It'll move, make this big S shape in the air and then land about middle of where you threw it. Typically reserved for distance throws. I'll show you one here. So you see it rolling to the right, now it stopped, now it's moving back to the left. That was a nuke, by the way, they go far. The next shot's known as a turnover, so not the I turned a disc over and I had an error and it just burned into the ground. This is a slight hyzer release, maybe flat, and it turns over and runs out to the right a little bit for a right hand backhand. And it's slightly understable and it's just moving in an understable fashion from a slight hyzer release. So it rolls up, turns over, and then continues going in an understable way. Let me show you. See that? Slight hyzer release. Woo! Slight hyzer release, flipped up to flat, and then turned over and moved to the right just a little bit. Next shot is a roller. This is very technical, can give you huge distance, and is a great utility shot. It's when you take a slightly understable disc, you throw it on a very steep anhyzer angle, and it lands on the ground and rolls for a very long way, hopefully. So the more unstable a disc is, the easier it is to turn over into that angle. However, the more stable a disc is that you can get on that angle, it will characteristically go further. I'll use an Avenger SS, show you what it's all about. There it goes, there it goes. Still going, it's still going, it's still going, and it's next to the woods. So pretty cool. They'll do what's called standing up, so they'll land on a slight angle to them, and then they'll stand up, and then they typically roll over on their tops. So the next shot's called a stall shot. These are pretty fun. You throw it on a flat angle, higher than usual, and you get it up into the air, and it'll run out of speed and stall out, and then it'll fall to its overstable section. So if I'm throwing a right hand, backhand, it's gonna go up in the air, run out of gas, and then fall to the left. If I was throwing a forehand, be up into the air, stall, fall to the right. And if you're left-handed, you know what to do. So up in the air, up in the air, up in the air, stalling, and then it just runs out of gas, falls to the left, down into the ground. Pretty cool. Rapid fire term time. If you throw a disc way up in the air and it slams down on the ground, sticking straight up in the air, that's known as a tombstone. If you had the worst score on the last hole you're known as Bob. You are the bottom of the box. You're the last to throw. You are Bob. So when people say that, that's what that means. Casual, that means that you've thrown in water or mud or somewhere that is maybe an unplayable lie. It's known as casual. You don't take a stroke penalty and you can move it to the next playable lie. A hazard is an out of bounds area that is marked. If your disc falls into it, you don't go to a drop zone and you don't go into the nearest inbounds area. You play the disc as it lies, but still take an OB stroke. I know that I've missed tons of terms, and you can help your fellow disc golfers and your newbies by posting those down below and tell us all the terms that I've missed and let them know how to elevate their game as quickly as possible. And remember, if you love all things disc golf entertainment, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. I'll catch you next time.